I'm here today with Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
Hello, it is great to be with you.
My regular guest since we began in September 23. We've done dozens and dozens of these conversations around sensory health because you are an occupational specialist, I always get it wrong, occupational therapist with a specialty in sensory health.
Indeed. Thank you.
What does that mean?
Yeah, good question. Yes. So, occupational therapist, that is where we help anybody, whether it's a child, an adult, an older person, do the things that they want to do in life. So it's about being more content in themselves, able to do things better and feel better about themselves, regardless. But what the occupational therapy bit of it is the fact that we then have to go and realize if people aren't feeling calm, content, coordinated, and confident. What is going on in there? So that's how I've termed sensory health. So we have to have a look. We have to step back. We have to dig deeper. We have to talk more. We have to assess more. We have to find out what the roots are of why someone isn't functioning the way that they would like to. They're not living the way that they would like to, and therefore we find the solutions. So we find what the problems are, and then we work out together what the solutions are, and just help them thrive. So that's where the sensory aspect of it comes in, is that I particularly look at all the sensory underpinnings of behavior, of function, of how people are, things they can do, things they can't do. And that's where it's the sensory health that is the focus rather than physical health or spiritual health, emotional health, mental health. I very much focus on the sensory aspect. But because we have to address a person as a person. We're so holistic that I, of course, feed into every other single area. It's just I'm a particular specialist in how I've studied sensory integration and processing in the body and the brain.
I found myself talking almost semi-knowledgeably about sensory health and the importance of understanding and comprehending how someone might behave in a certain way that we might make a conclusion about, but may actually be a sensory health. And I've forgotten where. And I actually said, I'm quoting Laure Jackson. I think I've actually started to grasp how much of an importance sensory health is. And you've done that through the sensory thumbprint, which I really, really love because we've each got a thumbprint and they're always unique and they're always designed.
Absolutely designed phenomenally. So it's not about when people, some people, I've had some of the teenagers speak to me and say, oh, but you're going to change me? And it's like the who of who you are is the essence of who you are is beautiful, phenomenal. I'm not going to change any of that. I'm just going to make life easier for you if you see that there are areas in your life that actually aren't as you would prefer them to be. And those are the bits that I can help with. It's not about changing who you are. It's about, helping you blossom in who you are rather than the opposite.
I was thinking about this very much of a physical disability and how it's affected doors. Now, if you're going into a shopping centre, I went into a service station on the motorway the other day. There were two sets of doors. One was a push door, one was an automatic door. I went through the automatic door because, let's face it, it's more hygienic and it's less effort to walk through a door that's open for you. But we saw quite a few years ago now where semi-automatic doors came in. And if you were struggling with a disability, therefore you couldn't push through the door, or you're in a wheelchair, or you've got sticks and it's more complicated, you press a button and the doors open for you. And I really like those, except for the fact that if you try and push them without pushing the button, they're much harder work. And it does go to show the reason why we can generate something really amazing, because I guess an automatic door is probably more complicated and costly. This is effectively a mechanical door with a button. But it helps people, but only if we bother to press the button. But if we do press the button, it makes it better for everybody. I like those doors.
It's just let's just make everything easier for everybody. That would be wonderful. Yeah. So just press the button. Just activate something that's going to make it a lot easier for everybody.
I do remember a chat. So Dr. Richard Scott, GP, another one of my guests, he was talking about the Paralympics and how a lot of the athletes, we're saying basically stop calling us disabled athletes or special athletes or athletes who aren't quite as good as the others, so we'll stick them in a special category. It's like we are athletes in our own right. And I loved that thing because it's really It's not focusing on what they can't do, it's focusing on what they can do really well. And that's a great example for life and for society. But it's also helped me understand a bit about sensory health, because we think, oh, well, they can't do this. Oh, bless them. They're not very good. They can't do this. They can't do that, which is a terrible attitude, which I know exists because I've been guilty of that in the past. Because it's sometimes we stick people in a little box when we shouldn't. But actually, rather than saying, oh, look, they're sensory health people, they're not very well, they've got problems. Do you know what? They're part of society, and you're not perfect either when we look at anybody else, including ourselves in the mirror.
And that is why one of the biggest things when I'm talking to, especially parents, because parents are the main group that I'm working with, it's about what are the expectations of what you want your life to look like. Because the disappointment in a life that doesn't line up with what you want it to look like is huge. And the expectations of what you think your child should be able to do, all these should words are really not that helpful. It puts an awful lot of pressure on children. It puts an awful lot of pressure on parents. It puts an awful lot of pressure on teachers to feel as though they need to somehow push a child into something. It's much better if we can flip it around and say, okay, let's just start. Let's understand where they are at, full stop. Let's chill, just pull back. Let's find out who they are, how they are, what's going on, where are their struggles. And it's that gentle, very gentle hands of support behind them to support where they need and bringing things in as they need, rather than a pulling or a pushing. It's not gentle hands of a push, it's a gentle hands of a support, and that they're a very different approach. They're a very different approach, and that's hopefully one of the biggest things that I try and work with parents and others to change that, because it really helps the adults involved, never mind the children or the young people too.
I want to move on to our sensory healthy series, which I'm excited about. But I heard this the other day. If we only look at what we can't do, we end up being frustrated, angry, debilitated, unable. So instead of looking at what we can't do because of aging, disability, finance, whatever it is, don't look at what you can't do. Make sure you look at what you can do. And I'm guessing that really what you're doing is taking the eyes off where you should be able to do this, but you can't, which is really frustrating. And it generates anger, and it doesn't bring peace and ability. And in some ways, it just limits people. But instead of what you can do or should do, it's what can you do with who you are, with who God made you to be. What is it that you have the ability to do, and do that well?
Yeah. And it's also what can you change? So the change becomes then a positive. It's not a what is it? It's not because you have a disability that you can't do these things. It's look at what can you change within how you are, who you are, the environment, the organizations that you're in, the places that you're in. How you then become empowered when you realize that actually there are some differences, but the differences needn't be seen as negative. They're not things you want to get angry about or frustrated about, or all of that stuff is not good. So it's just how can we empower those who do have those differences to flip from that frustration to that actual empowering to do something, whether that just be simply acceptance, which is a powerful thing, or I can change this now, or I can do something about this, and I know what to do, and I know how to do it, and I know how long to do it for, which is one of the biggest things that I help people work that bit out as to how to address the sensory needs that they have assessed, or that we have assessed, and we then address it.
And it's that thing of should that. I mean, we've talked about this a few times. It's one of my little soapboxes, but we need to almost eradicate the word should from our vocabulary, because I should be able to do this, I should be able to do that. All it does is put internal and external pressure on ourselves that's then not controllable. It's like a runaway freight train. The problem with the word should is it's guilting and it's loading burden and pressure, rather than, well, what are you able to achieve? How can we help you do that? Which is, in a sense, it's sort of the same conversation, but it's really not, because one is going to leave you on the puddle on the floor, and the other one will have you soaring and singing.
Yeah. This it's the subtleties in the things that we all learn through experience as we mature and as other people speak into our lives and as other people bring their wisdoms in and you take those things and you change accordingly because the subtleties are huge, massively important.
Hmm. Right. Sensory Healthy series. We mentioned this last time. We're going to run through, well, not in one go. We're going to walk through calmly and carefully without running and tripping. We're going to work through a number of sensory healthy somethings. And then you're going to help improve these bits of life. So, sensory healthy church is where we're going to start today, but we might look at a sensory healthy office. What does that look like? A sensory healthy circus, which you referenced. And I thought, oh, that sounds good. What's a sensory healthy circus? Sensory healthy festival. Festivals are coming up soon. All these different things we can actually apply sensory health to. But how do we make them suitable for somebody who has sensory health struggles? Or even how do we improve it for people who don't have sensory health struggles? So, sensory healthy church is where we're going to start today. I almost like a go, but I mean, where do we start with a sensory healthy church? Why? I guess the first question for me is, why does it matter to think about sensory health in a church? Surely, being devil's advocate, church should be a place we just go to and sing some songs, listen to a sermon, and go home feeling better. So, where does sensory health fit into all of that?
Yeah. This has been a really interesting journey for me in particular. Like it's funny starting with this one, that this was such a conviction that I needed to do something about it because I was just hearing it time and time and time again that folks weren't going to church. Because of not because of God, not because of doctrine, not because of all of the typical issues and things that can come into play when you're in the Christian circle and things like that. It was like it was about the fact that I can't move enough. It's the volume and the sights and the smells and the touch experiences. And it was funny to think that something so basic and foundational and God-given wasn't being addressed in a way because people again don't know about it. And so it always takes me back to, even though I've got 30 years in this, and a lot of people are not that aware still of how important those basic senses are to our functioning and how we are. And it's not because I mean, it is all in scripture everywhere. It's just put in a different way, and so I'm highlighting the importance of the senses to the churches, as are more and more people now too, especially those who are struggling to be in church, and then people are being empowered to actually speak out about it because they say they don't want to be at home. They don't want to. They want to actually be in fellowship. They want to join and celebrate with others. They want to come and worship with others because the power of community is powerful. It is yeah. It's seeing God in his awesomeness and seeing what he does, seeing how the Holy Spirit works when we're in communion together is a remarkable and a beautiful thing, and how we are fed and changed and transformed. So with people not being able to access that, I needed a tool to be able to help churches and be able to help church members look at what was going on. Where is it in the church that we're falling down and we're not aware? We haven't brought it to consciousness of the things that we need to address. So yeah, there's a massive amount of information in the Sensory Healthy Church program. Sensoryhealthychurch.com is where it's now situated, so that there is a free program for people to be able to access, to pull apart, to see things, to be inspired, to work out, are some of the issues that they're having, do they have a sensory base or do they not?
At the most simple levels, I know we've had this particular conversation before. I don't apologize for bringing it back up again, but at the most simple level, you walk into a church, you find your seat, that's okay. The music starts, you look up. If it's a particularly older style church, there might be a weird looking board thing with some numbers on it. What's that about? Who knows, unless you know. Or maybe there's a more modern screen up there with the words on it. But if the numbers aren't tied to a book and it doesn't say, by the way, these are the numbers of the hymns in the hymn book in front of you, then the numbers on the wall are pointless. If the words on the screen, if there's too many words on a screen or they're too small, then you're actually stopping people from getting engaged with the singing. And this is just the singing part of the service. So it's more of a physical thing, I guess. But actually, that is a sensory healthy issue in the sense of, if you can't read it, or it's a really fancy font that looks beautiful and no one can physically read, it's going to grow frustration. I want to sing, but I can't.
Yeah, totally. And it's those things, especially now when we have our screens with either moving images behind. And that so even the actual font now has to be simpler. We need the contrast between what is going on behind on the screens and therefore and then the letters and how those letters are contrasted against, so that the eyes have something to fix on, because we have 6 eye muscles around the eye. And they help the eye move in various directions and around the place, to be able to focus. So it's not, I don't deal actually with what, that's the eye people, that's the opticians and the specialists as to, how big or how large a size is. But obviously, we kind of recognize that if we're dealing with things that are visual, some people will need things big enough. If they're at the back of the hall, if they're at the back of the church, if you've got something at the screen, you need it to be big enough for them, but not too big so that it's just overpowering to the people at the front. So there's some basic things that need to go on, and that's normal optical things. But the sensory processing aspect of it, even more so, it's like, how bright is it? Because some people need to wear sunglasses. If it's too dim, yes, we have a normal visual problem that people might bump into things, or they can't see where the book is to pick it up, or who's sitting next to them if you're in a really dark place. But it can really be painful to be at the receiving end of certain lights, from, if we're looking at the visual system, and those are the things that we need to consider, that maybe people haven't quite considered it in the same way, because they don't have the understanding of sensory processing, especially when we look at the body. People have a general idea of those 5 main senses that we learn at school, but the extra ones about how much we need to move our heads, how much we need to move our bodies, our proprioceptive system, and different aspects of our touch system that are not normally addressed are really powerful, really important to look at too.
I was in a worship event. Well, it wasn't a worship event, but there was a worship time. And I was thinking sensory health. It's in my brain now, locks into this. The Church of England, the traditional church, were very, very good, and are very good at getting you to stand up, sing a song, stand up for a scripture reading, sit down. And actually, they're constantly building in movement. So in that sort of a service, it's very hard to get frustrated from sitting, because actually sometimes you think, can I just sit down for 5 minutes because you're up again? But that's great from a movement perspective. But in the recent worship thing I was in, it was like 40 minutes standing up to worship. Now, there were chairs. It was very, very loud. You could almost not hear yourself singing. Now, I quite like that sort of environment. It was very overwhelming in a good way for me personally. I love it. Others would not prefer that, which is why we do need churches with different styles of worship. But it's not just saying to churches, well, you're wrong, make the font bigger because they can't read it, because that's not helpful. And it's also not saying, well, if you're at the back of the church, it's not your fault, you can't read it, because the church can make it a little bigger and the people who can't see could move to the front of the church. All of a sudden, you've got 2 things going on. So rather than having this huge divide between font size and person, now you're bringing font size in just a bit bigger, getting people who can't see a little bit closer to the screen. And all of a sudden, you've got more of a happy medium rather than an extreme, which from a sensory healthy perspective is brilliant for the majority of people.
Yeah, that is really nice, and that's why. And when folks are asking, who is the sensory healthy church for, and I'm saying, well, it's for both, because we need those who are in leadership positions to know how to accommodate and how to adapt things, but we also need the membership to take responsibility as well. So it has to be a 2-way thing, and therefore I haven't segregated it into, this is purely for leaders and this is purely for church members. I'm very happy just to meet churches and church leadership and talk through issues with them, for sure, because they will need to address things in a different way. So, and that's where we've got March, and then we've got September, 2 times in the year where there's an openness. In particular, I mean, I can go to any churches any time of the year, but they're ones where I'm dedicated within the Christian sensory support to offer those times as a concentrated time before Easter, before Christmas, to actually help churches look at these things in particular.
It is important that we don't forget that a church is not church leaders and people. a church is supposed to be everybody with a different function. And some of those functions might be standing at the back, welcoming you, taking the offering plate around. Other functions might be standing at the front, singing or leading in singing or speaking, whatever. But actually, one of the really important functions in a church is being part of the body on a pew or a chair. Actually, it's critically important component of the church, because otherwise it's just the leaders. Well, that's a bit boring. Or it's just the people who are on the PA desk. Well, what's the point in them? Actually, it's everybody together, because then we have the body, the family, and everyone has a place.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is special. And especially, I mean, there are some churches and you've got these, big leadership teams, and then you've got somewhere else where you've got one person who's actually making the decisions, having to do so much. And it's like, well, actually, we're in this together. This is what church is. There's just certain people who are able to take extra responsibility for certain things. But boy, are we in this together, because we're all children of God, and we're all here to serve one another and to be a blessing to one another.
I mean, I've highlighted one issue, which is much more of a physical issue, if I can phrase it that way, because it's about the size of font, therefore eyes, which obviously is opticians. You're not the optician part of it. You're what happens once the brain is seen or not, whatever may or may not be there. And then it goes into the brain, and that's the bit that we need you for. What would you say are 3 top things that any church congregation, which includes everybody, could do this coming Sunday to make a sensory healthy improvement for the most people?
It's communication from the front. That is the most important thing, and that doesn't cost anything. You don't need any equipment. You don't need to do anything. You just need to give permission for people to do things differently if they would like to. So it's giving permission if they feel as though they want to sit rather than stand. If they want to go to the back and move during the service, that's absolutely fine. You need to set the boundaries of what kind of noise you are comfortable with, so that if you've got little children or younger children who instinctively make noise, especially the littlies, you can't shut a little one up by telling them, because that's just part of the natural way of being there. They just make noise, and that's beautiful. So there's either allowing or saying, you can go out, but then you can come back in again. So sometimes if they've cried, if they've hurt themselves, they can go and settle, and then you can come back in, and there's that freedom to say they're welcome back in again. You have to set the levels of which you feel it's right and comfortable for, and then they can have things that they can chew on. You can give them little snacks, which will also distract their mouth and their ears from reading anything, because actually they're chewing on things and they're eating on things, and that's a really lovely thing. And to give permission to say, look, if you want to eat something in church while you're here, absolutely go ahead. So people are free. There's no judgment of, mind you, I wouldn't bring crisps because they're really noisy. Sorry, my phone is going off there. That's not good. So permission from the front. But the person, whoever, again, is the leadership, however you want your church, whatever atmosphere, whatever principles, the essence of your church, you say that you don't mind a little noise, but actually if you think you're disturbing, please go out, settle whoever, and come back in again. If you need to move, please go out the back. Or not out the back, but just walk around the back, or walk up and down somewhere. And I'm just getting just getting attacked all over with my phone at the minute. It's all happening. So, so we can give people notice, give people permission to do whatever they'd want to when they're in church, and probably another couple of other things. If you can, give different seating options. For folks to sit on, and for people to fidget with. Have a fidget box at the back. Have a box maybe with some ear defenders if people aren't coming themselves, so that if it is a bit too loud, have an idea of what's going on, either to just bring it down a bit. Does it really need to be as loud as it is? And if there is a reason for that, well, then just tell people they can move and find a different place in the church if it's too noisy. Allow them to have different things on their ears. And again, if there's a culture of anything is accepted, then people will feel much more relaxed about having their earplugs in, or ear defenders, or if they're knitting, or if they're fiddling, or if they need to kneel a bit, or if they want to sit on a gym ball. Those are those are would be my top tips with not much time investment or thought into it. But maybe the other thing would be let's get people talking to one another, and actually let's start assessing and finding out how people are, and let's have a real look at the church environment to see what things could be changed to make life better, and people want to come and fellowship with others in church.
I mentioned how I was at a worship event. It was very loud, could barely hear yourself sing. But then it was a time of prayer. Now we're going to pray during the singing. Okay, that's fine. My brain's thinking, is there another line coming? Yes, there was. If you want to have some prayer, go to the back of the room, furthest from the front, because it'll be quieter and then easier to pray. We're not going to stop worshiping for everybody else. I thought, what a brilliant way of allowing people to want to keep on singing, to keep singing. If you wanted to pray, you can go to the back of the room, so you're not visually in front of everybody. And then, as actually said, a little bit quieter. And I think that example is probably a really good one, because a lot of what you're talking about, it's not radically overhauling the church, demolishing it and starting from scratch, 10 gazillion pounds to fix everything. We don't need to do that. We just need to say, if you want some prayer, go to the back because it's a bit quieter. It's not complicated.
Yeah, and it was great. We had on Sunday the tea and coffee has also been brought into. We have two separate spaces where there's kind of teas and coffees now. The first one, really overwhelming in noise, also because there's a lot of people. So a lot of people cause a lot of noise, a lot of chatter, and a lot of background noise. For those who find it difficult to pick out conversations, that's auditory discrimination, an aspect of sensory processing. So to be able to discriminate and have a conversation in the midst of noise is particularly difficult for some. So it was lovely the fact that tea and coffees are now offered. Once everybody else heads out, you've got the quiet space for prayer, and you've also got a place that if you want to help yourself to have a drink and a quiet chat, at the back you can do that too. Little things, aren't they? Lovely.
They are little things. I mean, go to the back for prayer so it's less loud. I mean, we wouldn't necessarily have to have a training program and get people involved and have programs of education just it's a simple line from the front. If you want prayer, go to the back because it's quieter. That's not something. I mean, I've been a church leader. I understand most people might be listening to this, and some of them might be thinking, "What? How much is this going to cost me in time, effort, resources, or energy?" And actually, so much of what we can do to make the church far more widely accessible to people from a physical entering the building and enjoying the space perspective, it doesn't cost anything. Like you say, it's dead free, and actually it's probably going to help more than just the person that's walking in with a pair of headphones on because it's too noisy. Okay, that's an obvious one, we can spot that one. But actually, if it is too loud, it's not good for your eardrums. They're very sensitive. We should protect those. If you can't hear yourself singing, well, that's useless because we're supposed to be a church. It's not a concert. So there are some things that, this actually is beneficial anyway for the wider congregation. But as you've said, so many of your little top tips, they're really easy to implement. It's not complicated, and it doesn't cost anything other than maybe changing a few words from the front on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about it, the fact that it doesn't need to be costly. It's like so much can be done.
And so much can be done for no money.
Listen, everybody listen. This is real.
I guess just summing up, I know you pretty well now. I know a little bit about the Century Healthy Church, but my perspective of what it is that you do is you kind of get church leaders and church congregants talking where perhaps they might not want to. I remember in a church there was an older couple, and the chap, lovely man, a really good friend of mine, he couldn't see anything on the screens. And they just came and they were really sad. And someone noticed them sitting at the front of the church every week being really sad. It's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so sad? Someone died. It's like, well, we come every week. We love church. We love being here. We can't read the screen. And so we just stand there because we can't literally see the words to sing along. We don't know the songs. We don't care that we don't know the songs. It's great. We love the young people. We want more modern songs. But if we can't read them, so we just simply printed out the words of the songs on huge font, and they were happy again, and they were involved in the service. It cost us irrelevance. It's like, 6 pieces of paper, which is nothing, on a huge font size, and they could stand at the front and then they could sing again. And they were so happy and joyful to try and get involved with the songs.
That's a beautiful example. It's a beautiful example. And it also shows that there's an awful lot of people who won't speak. Unless they are approached, unless there is a tool, unless there is something. I mean, I'm quite assertive, really, and I keep forgetting that actually other people aren't. But I'm also very quiet with it, and there's many times that I just keep keep my mouth shut instead. And if there was a forum to be able to to air some things, well, then there'd be some lovely things that would come out. And hopefully, this tool is something that gives people conversation and opening to be able to address people who are quiet, people who won't have the confidence, people who have been battered, because some people have, been really battered with their experiences, or they've said something and it's been turned around and it's their fault, and they don't want to go there again. They don't want to get hurt again. And this hopefully is a tool to bring almost a healing in a very different way to people.
Churches are not places to be silent.
No.
Well, they shouldn't be. And how do people get hold of your wrong wording? The Sensory Healthy Church. Just remind us of that one.
The sensory, it's called sensoryhealthychurch.com.
Okay. And then you've got March and September. You have, if memory serves, you have a Zoom that's completely free. Anybody can get involved with that and get involved.
Yeah, March and September, we have free Zooms just to say hello to people, and this is what we have. And then we have a paid service if folks actually want to get in and do something about it. So we have a commitment. Then that's where people pay for it. It's not much, but it's people pay to be able to say, right, okay, let's look at this. We're going to do it in 6 weeks. But then once you paid once, you're there for every year. It's a one-off payment for the lifetime membership for as long as I and anyone else who takes on the Sensory Healthy Church, if God calls me home or anything else, it's always going to be there as a resource. And so every year, coming into those 6 sessions will be part. You pay once, and then you're there for every year, because hopefully this will grow, and you'll realise that more people actually need to hear this. And actually, as your church changes and people come in, there's going to need to be a refreshing. People in the church are going to need to know about this year upon year upon year and build upon it. Also, because the needs of our society are changing, and we have more and more people coming through, more and more children coming through that have sensory processing issues. The diagnosis of autism, the diagnosis of ADHD, not sure what's going on in our world, but there is definitely an increase in conditions and diagnoses and ways of being, but we are all sensory beings regardless. But it's there to be provided on a year-on-year service. So you come in once and that's it. You've got access. The actual program itself is free, but if you want more specialist help to make it happen and to change things, then I'm there for 6 sessions a year, every single year, March and September.
There is so much we can do that's free. There is so much we can do that we should be investing into. And sensory health, I mean, I'm guessing you would love not to be needed to do this, because everyone is already so integrated into society. Oh, let's do this, let's do that. We're not there yet. But hey, there's always hope.
No, absolutely. And there are times that like I've really questioned, if I kind of like give this away, does that mean that I'm doing myself out of a job and all? And it's just like, get over yourself. It's just like people need help. It's just like, just get it out there. Just help people. God will provide for you. Things will be just help, but just do it. Just give it. I mean, I've got 30 years worth of experience, and it's just like put it out there. And if people don't want it, they don't want it. But if they do, then it's there.
If you're a church, September, when in September is the next one?
Don't know. There's just 2 weeks in September. I don't know off the top of my head, put it that way. It's in the diary. But it's 2 weeks in September. I just don't know when.
We'll let you know before. Don't worry. Right. And Laura Jackson, thank you. If sensoryhealthychurch.com, if you want to specifically access the Sensory Healthy Church stuff, go to sensoryhealthychurch.com. If you want to connect with Anne in another way, it's come to our website. We will connect you, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ, and we will connect you with Anne Laura Jackson of Santé in Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, they can get the Sensory Healthy Church through your website anyway. You just go to your pure247/ALJ, and that will send you to my website, and all the stuff is on there. But you can go direct to the Sensory Healthy Church.
Absolutely. Thank you. I don't know where we're going to go next time. I'm looking forward to this. I like a little series every so often, so I'm not sure. Sensory healthy something. We'll figure it out next time.
Yeah, sensory healthy something. I think it's lovely.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thanks, Sam.